1996, the Phoenix Suns would use their 13th overall pick on Santa Clara guard Steve Nash. Nash would become one of the best point guards of all time, as well as one of the best playmakers of all time, but he was the first Santa Clara draft pick in 10 years at the time he was drafted. And it would be 27 years until we would even see another player from Santa Clara be drafted into the NBA, when the OKC Thunder used their 12th overall pick on Jalen Williams, a power guard that skyrocketed up draft boards following a stellar junior season. Now, Jalen isn't the next Steve Nash. They aren't really similar players at all, and those kind of expectations are just too high to ask of anyone. Steve Nash is a Hall of Famer and one of the best players at his position ever. But Jalen is still a very good player in his own right. One thing that stands out for me on tape is that Williams is a very physical player. He's adjusted well from playing its college competition to NBA competition from a physical standpoint. At 6'5", 211 pounds, with a 7'2" wingspan, Williams has the frame to play both the 2 and the 3. He's also a very good athlete, decent first step, good speed in the open court, incredible playing strength, good vertical athlete as well, and has good all-around movement skills. He's just built to play NBA basketball from a physical standpoint at that guard wing spot, and he uses his physicality to his advantage to bully guards and even wings and forwards, at least some of them, who have a hard time handling his physicality. He loves using the spin move, it's been really effective for him, and he has good feel as a finisher in my opinion. He knows what he's doing and he's in control, which is a really good sign from a rookie. And as of right now, I think finishing and physicality are the bread and butter of his game. He's shooting 71% on 4.2 restricted area field goal attempts per game. He's shooting 61.4% on 6.1 overall in the paint field goal attempts in general, which accounts for 63.5% of his total field goal attempts. He's also shooting 58.5% on 3.2 layup attempts per game. He's a really good finisher, but it can be even more than that. Jalen Williams is actually a pretty good passer. I don't think he'll ever be a primary initiating playmaker, but I do think he has connecting and complementary playmaking upside. He makes good reads, has pretty good vision, and he understands the flow of the offense. He passes ball on drive and kick situations. It's not something he's asked to do a lot because of the fact he plays with Giddey and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, but just because it's not his main responsibility doesn't mean he's bad at it either. On tape, he shows the signs of being a solid to good passer, at the very least good enough for me to be confident in calling him an all-around player. A team being built around a player like Shai could use as many connecting passes as possible, and the obvious name everyone will talk about in this regard is Giddey, but I think Williams helps out a lot in this regard as well. I also think he does a good job of using his scoring gravity to his advantage to open up passing opportunities at this point in his career. The one area Jalen isn't good at right now is shot consistency. I don't think he's a bad shooter. At the very least, he shows the indicators you look for in shooting promise. Good form, good touch around the basket, a decent free throw shooter. I just think it's about focusing on consistency and somewhat shot selection, which is common for players this young. And to be honest, compared to most guard wings or really forwards at times in his case, I don't feel like he forces as many shots or has tunnel vision like I see in other players at the same stage of their NBA development. I think a lot of this has to do with experience. He was a 3-year college player, but I also think it's because he has a solidified role and plays in the pecking order on OKC's team. He understands that Shai is the guy and Giddey is the second guy. I'll talk more about this in another regard soon, but as far as why he doesn't force the issue as much as you would expect a rookie with his skills to, is because he does understand his role, and honestly his shooting is more of a nitpick than anything else. He has some promise, but compared to the rest of his offense, it is his biggest flaw. But that speaks more to how good he is in his other offensive skills rather than how bad he is as a shooter. I think what makes Jalen Williams so valuable is he's a versatile player. He can play 1 through 4 in at the very least some capacity. I think he thrives most as a wing, but he has some skills to play the 1 in certain situations, even if I wouldn't put him there full time at all. He is also tough and physical enough to play at the 4, which he has found a decent amount of success at. On top of that, he has the skills to play in multiple situations. He has the skills that make him adequate on the ball, and he has the skills that let him thrive off the ball. He can play in lineups with second units as the main option. He can play in lineups with SGA and Giddey as an off-ball player. And he can also play in lineups with either one of them individually, which is where I find his versatility to have the most value and where it thrives the most. Because he can play that off-ball role he thrives in so much off of SGA or off of Giddey, depending on who's in the lineup. And he also can play on the ball as well and take some of that pressure off of those guys, depending on which one he's playing alongside. It depends to the variance that you would have him playing on the ball, but I do think he could handle on-ball reps playing alongside either one of them, which again is just so valuable. In fact, like I said, I believe it's the most valuable part of his versatility as a player. The best way I can describe Jalen Williams is that he's a star role player. He's capable of doing some things that star guards and wings do, but overall when I watch tape, I feel like he just fits better as a complementary player next to a star. In OKC, he's playing off one of the best players in the league in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, which is fine. Just because he works better in a complementary role off a playmaker and a star doesn't mean he isn't good, because he is really good already. I mean, he's a 6'5" rookie guard wing forward type that is averaging double-digit points per game while also shooting at least 50% from the field. That's extremely impressive. And yes, you do need stars to reach the mountaintop. They're going to be the guys that you build a team around, and you need them to elevate your team. But it's just as important to have players around those stars that fit well and provide positive value. And to me, that's where Jalen Williams fits to a T. He can play multiple positions, he can play multiple roles. He has the skills that directly benefit when you play next to a star like the one they have in OKC. It's always possible that Jalen becomes even more than just a great role player. A lot of stars in the NBA weren't projected to be stars early on in their career, so it is possible. But based off what I've seen, I still think Williams can be a good player even if he's never a star, and I'm not even ruling out the possibility he could be a star. He's always been an interesting player to research, watch, and talk about. I talk about him a lot with my friends Alex Hoobs and 3Cone, and also it's why I'm making a video about him. He will have his fair share of moments where he does look like a star and can take over a game. He also will have his fair share of moments where he just looks better playing off the ball than on the ball. I feel like the star label around the league has made people believe that players can only be stars or players that aren't worth talking about, which is so far from the case. Like I said, you need stars to reach the mountaintop, but you also need players around the star to reach the mountaintop as well. Williams is a player I think can be one of the most important on a contender one day. Someone that brings a ton of value because of his fit with the main options on the team and versatility as a player. I can't overstate how important guys like this can be on contenders. I see it all the time with Marcus Smart and how important he is with his fit next to Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. And I think that in a similar way, Jalen Williams can have that much value on a team the same way Marcus Smart does for Boston. They aren't necessarily the same player. I think that Marcus Smart is a great passer that is a decent scorer. And I think that Jalen Williams is a decent passer that's a really good scorer. But at the same time, the value of fitting next to the star players is the same in my opinion. And sure, OKC isn't a contender right now, not even close, but they have the foundation to be one in the future. Not only have they found their star, they also have done a good job of surrounding the star with talent that can grow and develop into important pieces for a potential end goal of this rebuild. And Jalen Williams is one of the biggest and most important pieces of this rebuild. As OKC improves and grows, so will Jalen Williams. Soon, people outside of OKC will realize just how valuable of a player he is, and also how valuable players like him are.